Hello, good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the hashtag AtoAni Learn series, where we share to you valuable insights about different sustainability topics that are relevant nowadays, such as the topic about utilizing the specific business model to use during the time of COVID-19, which is what we will be discussing with two expert guest panelists whom we will get to know more later. So, to everyone who is watching right now, whether you are new to this series or have watched the previous episodes, stay tuned and do put in the comment section below where you are watching. You can also share this live stream to your respective social media accounts to have more people learn from this discussion. Next slide. This is the seventh episode of the hashtag AtoAni Learn series. Tonight's topic is enabling circular economy in developing countries during COVID-19. I am Jonas De Leon, your moderator for tonight. I am a community intern at the AtoAni BioPack enterprise and a second year student in the University of the Philippines in Diliman, Quezon City, studying food science and technology. I am an advocate of various causes such as inclusivity and diversity, quality education and healthcare for all, mental health care, sustainable food packaging, and the 2030 SDGs. Same as everyone here, I am excited to learn more about this topic from our special guest panelists. To start off our discussion for tonight, well, this is a very interesting topic. I read from a book from an American economist, Milton Friedman, and he said that the business of business is business. Well, that's the traditional business paragon preaches. But have you ever asked where your old smartphones go when you replace them away? Well, typically, people venture business but never consider factors, and that's the truth. Next slide. Obviously, in this picture, we can all explain the diagram above. This is the biological cycle. It is a never-ending loop. As we decompose ourselves, we go back to the environment. And from the environment itself, we sprout a new plant. But humans adapt to the linear approach of making, creating, using, and throwing away non-biodegradable materials, just as seen in the diagram below. It is hard to imagine how much do we collect and stack up our landfill. Well, we all know, and it is obvious that everything has maximum capacity. And right now, we need a solution. Next slide. So if you're going to ask me, for your better understanding, what solution am I talking about? Well, these are a few of the most effective solutions that you can see. Okay, right now, a lot of people are venturing food business, delivery service, and from that we can gradually insert circular economy. Circular economy in the context is based on the principles of designing out waste and pollution, keeping products and materials in use, and regenerating natural systems. Well, if you can see here, raw materials are mined, products are manufactured, and then the consumers use them, and then exported until it's the end of its life. Next slide. The first part of the loop, the raw materials, it needs to define our economy to be circular. There are a lot of things that we can do before it reaches out the end of life. Okay, such as first example, the raw materials. I thought of a great example. We can mine copper from the post-consumer products. What do we mean by post-consumer products? Like conductor wires. You don't have to mine copper by opening another minefield. Okay, instead of opening up another mining caves, this is actually better. Why? Because the energy used is lesser than the energy that we are going to use when we open up another mining cave. Well, from that point on, you are sure that you're using the circular economy, and from that moment on, you are gradually emitting the negative effects of um, these materials of opening another mine caves. You're gradually increasing the sustainability. Okay, when we turn on in the manufacturing, you can improve waste and redesign how you recycle the copper, uh, so that you can use it for another time. At this phase of the stage, for manufacturers, you can rethink, okay, and redesign your models. What is the best way for you to, lessen the harmful effects for the environment? In the stage of consumption, you can see in the picture that this is where we all can relate. We can recycle and give an item for another use, give it another purpose. Redesigning would help extend its life. And when you finally throw it away, that's the time when we all need to recycle. But the question is, since it's recycled, um, does the recycled material maintain its quality when used with similar applications from the brand new ones? Or does it provide a downside that this material has a poor quality? Next slide. Same goes with biological materials. From harvesting goods to reaching its consumer, and once consumed, they can be used to create biogas, biochemicals, or decompose and eventually go back to the environment. In this business age, are we ready to know what business approach fits us all? Next slide. At this point, our guest panelists for tonight will share some practical insights about this topic and more. I'm excited to ask them some questions and ask your questions as well. So don't forget to type them in the comment section below in the live stream so that we can view them for our panelists to answer them later. We would also love to see some likes, hearts, and care reactions on our Facebook live stream. Or even share this live stream on your respective Facebook accounts. Next slide. Let me introduce you our first guest panelist. Our first guest panelist for tonight is a graduate with a degree in mining engineering in the University of the Philippines Diliman and treated her way to the prestigious Asian Institute of Management with a master's degree in innovation and business. She's the founder and CEO of two social technology startups, Bridge 360 IT Solutions and Waste Philippines. Bridge 360 is a social tech solutions company that aims to bridge social gaps in the Philippines. Here is Miss Rage Gonzales. Good evening, Miss Rage. Can you please turn on your mic?
Hi, good evening.
Hi.
Yeah,
How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
Tonight, you and I will be joined by another speaker who's also willing to discuss with us and help solve this topic for our viewers. And to complete tonight's special guest panelist, he's also a graduate of the University of the Philippines in Los Baños with a degree in chemistry and studied renewable energy and resource management at the University of South Wales. He's a resident scientist at Saline PH, a climate reality leader, renewable energy and environmental sustainability advocate. Here is Sir J.M. Dumdum. You may now turn on your camera and microphone, Sir Jonas.
Hi.
Hi,
Hi,
how are you
Katokayo.
doing?
Pretty good,
Hello, how
pretty
are
good.
you? How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, thank you. For the
Okay.
audience lang, for the purposes of this discussion, siya si Jonas, I'm JM. All right.
Yeah, I'm going to be the Jonas for tonight. He's Sir JM. Okay. First of all, I'm deeply honored to moderate this webinar with the both of you. Knowing that I could talk to my fellow Isko and Isa makes a lot of things more easier. Okay, easier. I mean, more easier. Well, that's really easy. Okay. Thank you for accepting our invitation in behalf of AtoAni BioPack. So let's get into business. Our viewers are really curious. Many of our viewers are businessmen, have started their own business. Can you please explain to them, okay, what is circular economy and how does it work? Okay, Miss Rage, you can go first.
Sure. Okay. So that's a really big question. Um,
Mhm.
well, basically, there's a linear economic model, kasi, and there's a circular economic model. So when we say linear economic model, what we look at is that um, when one when one industry, for example, for me, I'm coming from I graduated as mining engineer, and we all know that the extraction of materials, of raw materials, would usually be in the mining industry. And if you're looking at the other side, is that there's there's logging, to get more
Yeah.
resources. So there
Mhm.
are a lot of things. So that's one industry, the extraction part of the raw materials.
Mhm.
From there, you go to another industry wherein they make use of these raw materials and turn it into another product. From there, you go to another type of industry wherein there's already the commerce, the wherein it's you can sell it, people are selling it to the consumers. So these products, these raw materials that were turned into products will now be part of the system wherein there's consumerism, and
Yes.
can be sold to a lot of people. From there, you use it, and along that line, once you have used that part, then there's the landfill for you, or for other countries, it's more on incineration. So on that part,
Yeah.
that's the linear way of looking at that thing. Now, when we say circular economy, we want to make sure that at that end point, it becomes it loops, and it becomes
Yes.
another resource so that it can be used by another industry. So
Yes.
that's maybe basic circular economy idea.
And yes, I agree that humans really adapt to that linear approach. But um, at this time of age, we are lucky that many companies have transitioned to circular economy, and that's a little step forward in the world. That's why climate reality leaders are pursuing this kind of approach. Thank you, Ms. Rach. How about you, Sir Jonas? Sir JM, I mean.
Yeah, I think I just wanted to add to what Rage said. No, the linear economy has been something of a benefit, no, for the global economy for the past 200, 300 years, simply because there were less people, more resources. Now that we have reached the point that where it's being reversed, uh, and we have more waste, so we have to be more inventive, more creative, more innovative in using that waste, because waste is still a resource in a way. You used it, yes, but uh, for some people, you can turn it into something else.
Yeah.
And the researches on the circular economy are getting better now, around the world, because people are more aware of the consequences of just throwing it away. Like in the Philippines, no, if you look at the COVID-19 crisis, at the start of the COVID-19 crisis, we've had face masks that were being sold by like tons, I mean, hundreds and hundreds of boxes,
Yeah.
right? But when we got to the point of the GCQ, no, not not the ECQ, not the MECQ. When we got to GCQ, we've had news of face masks being thrown in Manila Bay, the rivers,
Yeah.
improperly improperly disposed actually, and some are in contradiction with Republic Act 1969, which is the Hazardous Wastes Act. In actual practice, there is a procedure that you need to do to treat face masks, but there's so many, it's not good enough. So people are now turning into alternatives, which is like the non-woven
Long mask.
face masks, uh,
Mm-hmm.
the ones that are made by Abaca or Buri.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So uh, how about the face masks themselves? Now, people are now actually trying to solve that problem as well. And that is a real case study or example of the circular economy right there. Even in the time of pandemic, people are now thinking of ways to solve the problem of too much face masks. And it's something that we should really support.
Yeah. To be honest, since this pandemic, we learned more about survival skills, but we tend to forget that we have isolated ourselves from a lens of you know how does the environment feel, what does Mother Earth feel at this point in time. I'm really curious. Why do you think should we promote circular economy? Yeah, I want
Well,
to ask that.
I
Miss
think
Rage. Oh,
the circular economy is something that's been happening, and it usually happens when there is a crisis. So right
yeah.
now, if there is a crisis in terms of resources, then that's the time that there is now a need for innovative ways of how to make sure that the waste before can now turn into to a resource again. If you actually go back to a time we're in, for example, Japan, the Edo period of Japan, when there was that time wherein there is really lack of resources for them for food for the Japanese, what they did was a simple circular economy wherein their waste, the human waste, can now be part of the urban gardening that their gardening that they have as a community, and from there they can grow their food with this
Mhm.
organic fertilizer, and then from there there's another setup.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
yeah.
so that's the circular economy right back in the Edo period of Japan. So I think that's one core idea, that because they lack resources, they lack the biodiversity that we have here in the Philippines. There's a reason there is a need for them to be innovative and creative. And even if there was no way of calling it back then, we just call it recently as a circular economy. But maybe that period there's no way of saying that it is a circular economy, but they are already doing that. It also happens when there is a war. So in times of war, for example, in way back World War II, there is of course everywhere in the world lacks resources because of the war that's happening. So what do people do? They become innovative again, they become creative again, they make sure, even in here in the Philippines as well as the Western world, they all need to make sure that what they have, like for example electronics, they have to make sure that they also recycle these electronics so that they can use it again and make
Yeah.
it into another product and another type of electronics. So it, the concept of circular economy has been with us all throughout these decades and years and even century. I don't, maybe even century. So
Yeah.
yeah, so maybe at the time of the wherein there is this concept of cholera even before that. So because of this type of crisis, whenever there are crises, circular economy, the concept of circular economy is being brought up. Now the thing is, um, I think that's the problem with us. It's only during the crisis that we try to think of these things,
Yeah.
wherein it should be something that we should have learned before. If we want to have a more sustainable life, sustainable as a country, we want to have a more sustainable development. then we should have been treating this as an everyday crisis, right? Kaya nga may
Mhm.
climate crisis eh. Climate crisis, there's water crisis, and all those stuff. We should be treating this as a crisis, but then again, we don't learn. I think that's a problem. We are never learning. It takes one crisis like this big, like pandemic, for us to again resurface the idea of we should be doing circular economy.
Yes. I agree with that because I've read a research about how the world is using its resources. So um, it's a fun fact because if we're all living as Americans, we are consuming our resources like 4 times a planet Earth. If we're living in the European standards, we're consuming it with 2.5 planet Earth. But in reality, we are consuming 1.5 planet Earth. You know, that's really a striking moment for everyone to change our ways. Okay, I just wanted to ask: should it be a policy for companies? No, not a policy, but a pattern for starting companies to do so. Any one
Um,
of you?
okay,
Yeah, okay.
starting
Jonas.
companies meaning startups.
Yes,
Okay. Rage has a more detailed opinion on this because
of
she
course.
really
Yeah.
formed a startup. Um,
Mm-hmm.
uh, well, just to give like a bit of a disclaimer, my main work is actually in corporate sustainability, so more of sustainability reporting. But I help out as a resident scientist for Silent PH, which promotes refilling as part of the new normal. And over there, we are really mindful about circular economy because we are tackling a specific problem, uh, plastic waste. And plastic wastes, if you can even reduce the usage of plastic waste, that's already a win for circular economy. As for other companies, sometimes it depends on their business model. But if it's a social innovation startup, you should, because it's already a plus now for Gen Zs and millennials actually to consider companies that are in line with what they're thinking right now, which is less consumption, um, more value, to the whole system. So they tend to use less packaging, or be
Yeah.
creative in their packaging, and it's an opportunity that a lot of companies should really exploit. Like, uh, well, there's a notebook that I got last year, and it's from my girlfriend, that was made from apple leaves.
Oh,
Yeah, the leaves. I mean, the pages of the
yeah.
notebook was from apple
Mm-hmm.
leaves,
Mm-hmm.
and that's already a big win
Yeah.
because you took out what is considered rotting waste and
Yes.
turned it into a very inventive piece of writing. Diba? Sounds cool. And
Yeah. Yeah. It's cool. Actually, it's amazing because it came from wastes, and then you still meet the standards of preserving life. Okay. Um, Meeting the standards and the goals of what we humans should do about it, and that's actually amazing. Yeah. Since our viewers have a little gist about circular economy, they wanted to know. Next slide, please. They wanted to know. Next slide. Yeah. They wanted to know how significant is the concept of circular economy during these times. Maybe to make it more specific, here in the Philippines and during COVID-19, how is it important right now, Miss Rage?
Hmm. Um, I I really think this is really very important right now. Again, going back to the idea that there is a crisis and we don't have that. We don't have the resources that we had before. So we are growing in number. We are already, as in the world, like 7.7 billion people, and we have a scattered resources. Some places has a lot of resources, some has not. Some, even if there is a resources, they cannot afford those resources. So what do you do? Well, there is a macro scale kasi of things, and then there's a
Yeah.
macroeconomics, and then there's microeconomics of these things. But um circular economy is is um is needed for a nation at maybe so that we can have that the we can meet the needs that we need. So the needs as a nation,
Mm-hmm.
we have limited mobility right now, so that also adds up to the problem. So now, how do we make sure that we still have enough food in our plates? We still have um, uh, clean waterways, clean water, clean air, and clean whatever. So, um, well, there are a lot of things kasi in a circular economy. So,
Mm-hmm.
anybody can contribute to that. It's not something that just one person can actually do. But it will only be successful if all players within the circular economy would actually play their part. Now,
Mm-hmm.
the import I think um what's gonna be more important question here is how to actually move from thinking very linearly to actually move to the idea of circular economy.
Yes.
So because it is important, I don't think there is a question on is it going to be important or not. So it's really more on how are we going to transition to that, or
Yeah.
how can we help anyone in that particular space to actually be moving towards that.
Yes, and that's the challenge to a lot of Philippine companies. Now, Sir JM, you want to add?
Actually, in our podcast, Sustain a Rumble, we were privileged to have someone in from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation,
Yeah.
uh, like the leading NGO when it comes to promoting circular economy measures. And our speaker there, his name's Sebastian. He was saying that in order for us to move forward with the circular economy, we really need to break the boundaries of the current system. It does not fit anymore that we do like a hybrid at this time, although there should be a transition. But the mindset of the people should no longer be uh, with the mindset of like our leaders in the 90s and the early 2000s. The situation back then is very, very different from the situation we have now because we've had many, many resources back then. And yet, it didn't say they didn't spare us from I don't know, the COVID-19 crisis or any other future crises that we may have, and that even includes the potential crisis of water in Metro
Mm-hmm.
Manila or landfills in Metro Manila. So it's just really the mindset. It's very difficult to change what we have to change, and funny enough, a pandemic caused us to think more about it. Um, and I'm yeah, and it's good because we're really driving the agenda forward. We're trying to move forward with things that really matter to the world, and hopefully by the time of 2030 or 2050, any worst case scenario that scientists would have would be mitigated and
Yeah.
would not happen.
Yeah, actually, to add to that, this basically stimulates innovation for everyone, as you can see, because there is a crisis nga, as Jonas said, well, as JM said, it stimulates innovation to everyone actually. coming from different walks of life. Even if you were not part of the business before, but now you're thinking about how to make business out of this crisis that we have. And since there are more now people trying to put up startups, it actually drives the economic side, um,
Yeah.
competitiveness for everybody. And that's good. The more
Mhm.
startups that we have, the more that there is competitiveness. And although since there is now these people trying to compete, trying to be innovative in terms of creating businesses, now there will now be a need for being innovative when it comes to the supply of the raw materials, how to make to get the supply, how to transport the
Redesigning the
supply.
system.
Yes. So how do you go about it? What's the workaround about it? And then how do you deliver your goods that makes sure that you don't add up to the waste? But then again, how do you, as a company now, um, how are you going to make sure that you reduce the pressure on the environment, since we need livelihood at the same time? So we are actually hoping that through the circular economy concept, they would be able to reduce the pressure to the environment. So yeah.
Yes, and by that, I think we need to go back to education. Yes, we need to educate, of course, the youth, starting from the youth. We need to educate them and, let them identify their role to this circular economy. Let them know about circular economy. I think we need to go back to education. Now, I just wanted to ask, how is the Philippines doing when how is the Philippine companies are doing when some are transitioning to circular economy, right? Like right now, how are they doing?
Okay.
Just wanted to ask.
At the I can probably answer at the corporate level, and
Yes,
at by the corporate level, we're talking about the 200 plus companies that are listed in the Philippine
yes.
Stock Exchange.
Mhm.
Um, there are companies that are already putting in effort in creating facilities that would constitute part of the circular economy. There are facilities actually in Taguig, in I believe Santa Rosa, Laguna, somewhere up north of, I think it's in QC, that are uh, trying to reuse or recycle plastics for one, because the number one problem in the Philippines, in terms of waste, is plastics. It's just everywhere. In addition, there are partnerships that are being developed, for example, in batteries, used batteries. So there are NGOs that are doing proper disposal, and probably uh, in being innovative in hopefully reusing those batteries, uh, coming from companies, because they're also the large buyers of batteries for one in the Philippines. But other than the conglomerates or the very large companies, we're also looking at MNCs. And for MNCs, multinational companies, uh, they are following the directives of the global initiatives, such as Coca-Cola for one, that is making an effort in reusing and recycling uh, old Coke bottles. The best example I can give is actually, if you noticed in 2019, I believe, if you looked at a 1.5 liter of Sprite, it's no longer colored green. It's now clear. Now, why is
Yeah.
that? Because it's very, very difficult to recycle a green plastic bottle. It's easier if it was just clear.
Mhm.
Therefore,
Yeah.
Coke was conscious of it, and now we don't have green Sprite bottles anymore, which is a good thing.
Yeah. Mhm. And by that, we want to highlight. That's a good example actually, because from there on, you don't have to, you know, uh, wait for the end of its life. You can redesign from the system itself, from the manufacturing itself, just like that. I like that example actually. Um, Instead of producing green bottles, why don't we make it clear, right? So from the manufacturing itself, the game actually changes. Yes.
Actually, it's not just that. I think if you want, adding to that, um, it's it's also, you can also look at how you power this manufacturing companies. Are you using renewable energy? That's
Yes.
also part of circular economy because it's
Hmm.
renewable. So if it's renewable energy, then there's gonna be less waste or no waste at all.
Yes. Hmm.
So yeah, and at the same time, you want to try to respect different natural systems like water. Kasi as I've mentioned before, there we have water crisis. There have been like a global fight for water crisis
Hmm.
uh way back maybe 2017 or earlier. So there are a lot, because of climate change as well and climate crisis. There is now some full blown drought in lots of parts of the world. While on the other side of the world, there's also large amount of precipitation and uh, super typhoons and all those stuff. So
Hmm.
yeah, uh, so we need to have these resources. We need to make sure that we take care of our resources, because the distribution of these resources are not equal, and we don't have the capacity to actually buy all of the stuff. Now this stuff is really um this there is this story of stuff wherein, because of this stuff, we are needing a lot of raw materials. Now how are we going to stop that need for a lot of materials and just wasting it on the other end? So we need to eliminate the concept of end of life, or the concept of
Yeah.
waste,
Yeah.
because I think the concept of waste is just that it's waste because nobody's using it anymore, or you don't want to use it anymore. But maybe the your definition of waste might not be waste for the definition of the other people or other communities. And uh so yeah, so the concept of waste is basically, it is a resource not at the right place at the right time.
Mhm. I like that. In a circular economy, we should get rid the, you know, end of life. I like that. I mean, there are a lot of things that you could think of things on how to, you know, create another life for that object, and that's really good. Our viewers also wanted to. Our viewers also wanted to know. Next slide, please. Our viewers also wanted to know what are the strategies in your respective organizations in enabling a circular economy. Sir JM, you want to start?
I can think of two answers actually. The first one is more scientific. Uh, your product, if you want to go really technical on the circular economy, perform a life cycle analysis on or life cycle assessment on your product. What is a life cycle assessment? From it's called the cradle to grave
Mm-hmm.
analysis. So when the point that you have your raw materials to the time that you use it, how much energy or resources do you need to do, and then compare it with uh, the same product, but you have it in a different. I mean, you do it in a different process. So, for example, I remember because when I was doing my masters that we did an exercise on manufactured glass that was coming from silicon mismo to manufactured glass that was coming from recycled materials. And what I remember from that exercise is that uh, the energy, resources, and even actually time, to create or recreate recycled glass is significantly less than if you started from scratch. Um, so, what does that mean for companies? It means that they can save actually uh, more of their money, more of their resources, and not very many companies are doing that because yeah, they're either not aware of it, or because their favorite supplier is more into the linear economy, and it's something that companies should really think about. Now, if you're not into the more technical, you want to be more practical, you really need to
Yes.
know how are you processing your product or service. uh,
Mm-hmm.
just doing a trace of what you did from the time that you got the goods, processed them, sent it to the customer, and how the customer uses it. Um, because each step means that uh, the material gets used and used and used until the end product, or the end point, your customer will no longer use it. So
Mm-hmm.
from there, you can now analyze, okay, this is what we're doing right now. How can we improve our product with with a different process, a better process, and hopefully a less expensive process?
Yeah, actually, maybe for the life cycle analysis, um, I think there's a concept instead of the cradle to grave. I think it was now cradle to cradle, if that is a
Cradle to
circular
cradle.
economy.
Yeah.
Yeah, for a
I
circular
wanted to
economy.
ask the difference between cradle to cradle and cradle to grave. I wanted to ask that.
Okay, when you say cradle to grave, it's really just a circular economy. No,
Mm-hmm.
you create a product, you process the product, you use the product, you throw away the product. That's cradle to grave.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Cradle to cradle is that you don't throw away the product. Instead of stopping at the very end, you now find a way to try to branch out or go back to the beginning. And that's already circular economy. Diba?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Miss Rage, I wanted to ask, from your organization, Bridge 360, or other organizations that you have. Hello, can you hear
Yeah.
me?
Yes.
Okay. I wanted to ask, what strategies did you use to enable circular economy?
Well, that's different for us kasi because the Bridge 360 is an IT company. So
Yes.
we don't really have any ways at all unless yung ano na
Yeah.
lang namin, for example, our laptops are not working
Yeah.
anymore and we have
Mm-hmm.
to make sure that it goes to the e-waste. Um
Mm-hmm.
and it's also the same with the waste pH. The concept is that we would aid the process itself. So we would digitalize these things, the process of integrated solid waste management system, and to make sure that people can see what's happening, and can
Mm-hmm.
also, but at the same time, can see that there are people behind the process of getting the garbage, like really see them. So because right now, yes, we see them, but we don't really see them as
Yeah.
people.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that andyan na yung mga there's basurero, there's already the waste collector, and that's it. And once your garbage is gone, you see that as you see that as no problem anymore. It's not your problem anymore once you don't see the garbage from your garbage can or outside
Mm-hmm.
your homes and houses. So what we're trying to do in waste ph is that through technology we can one democratize helping
Yes.
our waste collectors, democratize the information wherein how many garbage has it been, how many people are actually dumping their garbage correctly and making sure it goes to the correct facility, and in hopefully hoping that it would also inspire other people to segregate their garbage.
Mhm.
Because right now, one of the big problems why people don't want to segregate is that they just see them as being mixed with a lot of garbage and then goes directly to the landfill. So
Yeah.
what's what's
What's the
what
point?
what's the point, right? What's the
Mhm.
point of going? You don't want to go to the if you yourself don't want to go to a junk shop just to sell how much, what, 20 pesos, and
Yeah.
that 20 pesos is actually like 10 kilograms of PET bottles. So why am I even going there?
Mhm.
Gasolina, my fuel, my time,
Yeah.
the safety, because there's
Mhm.
COVID-19. So I don't want to risk that. So why would I even bother to to think about circular economy, right? Or even the idea of segregation. But the thing is, uh, so that's the strategy in terms of waste, where waste pH, wherein we want people to see that process. We want people to see that there are people trying to segregate the garbage and
Yeah.
they are not
Mhm.
alone. And if this garbage that they have already segregated all actually goes to a material recovery facility or a recycling facility or junk shops directly and doesn't go to the landfill, then that's one hope. And
Mhm.
yeah, so that's one step. And I think since this is a systemic problem, one solution may also be a solution for different problems.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I'm learning a lot with this topic, and it's so mind-boggling to know that, you know, from a single problem we can always have multiple problems, but with those multiple problems we can only have we're looking for so much solutions for multiple problems, but there's only one. Okay. And what touches my feelings is that it all goes back to human behavior. I do not condemn creating bioplastics. I do not condemn the invention of bioplastics, but I think plastics is enough, okay, as a food packaging material. But you know, the behavior, the discipline of humans, of how we throw our trashes, we all need to go back to education, and that's the primary thing, one strategy that we need to tell our viewers right now. Those are great strategies that you have shared, uh, Sir JM and Miss Rage, cradle to cradle, and from your experience, Miss Rage. So now that we know the significance and strategies, next slide, next slide, please. Okay, this is the point where we all want to know, definitely, will the transition to a circular economy reduce costs and create jobs, and how? Well, for this matter, um, we are now asking from a views of economic, societal, and ecological issues. Should there be a balance of the three? And I want to know that, Sir JM.
Right. I'll answer it in a way that it might be surprising because it's not really a well-known
Yeah.
statistic. There is a study coming from what was that? Uh, the International Labor Organization that
Mm-hmm.
stated that over, I think it was for the next 10 years, uh, green jobs, which includes
Mm-hmm.
jobs pertaining to the circular economy, will grow by 1.5 million.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
And that's in Southeast Asia. We can actually maximize that and go beyond 1.5 million if uh, there will be more initiatives in place, and not just due to government regulation, but also through efforts made by social startups, the private companies, and even you and me, to be honest. One notable example is actually Rage's no Waste PH,
Yes.
and yeah, and if her test project in Bacolod would work, it will actually generate more jobs. And I'm gonna say this also, no, to people who are also that are fearing for their lives because they dump it in the landfill. Actually, you'll be surprised that they can be retooled or
Mm-hmm.
retrained
Mm-hmm.
to lean towards more circular economy wise facilities. And it's no longer just one facility for trash going to the landfill. It will be multiple facilities now, employing so many people, um, doing different jobs, and they can also benefit by, you know, turning that waste into something else. So um, it's very very beneficial. Everyone should really have a think on it and see how they can contribute.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Miss Rage,
So the question was about if
will it
circular
reduce
economy
cost
reduce
and
cost.
create jobs?
Definitely. Well, Jonas has given us the numbers, but the reduce it will definitely and should reduce cost if you are recycling and you are upcycling materials, so you won't actually need new materials. But then there is actually in terms of the recycling side, uh, there is a debate there because of the use of resin. So right now, the price here in the Philippines in terms of our, for example, PET bottles, even just the plastics, creating new bottles, for example, actually is cheaper than
Mm-hmm.
recycling plastics right now. So because there are a lot of steps when you go to the recycling side, you have to get you have to make sure that the plastic is not wet, it was not contaminated in the first place, it has to be homogeneous. There are a lot of requirements
Yeah.
for that to be
Mm-hmm.
properly recycled. And that's what makes this recycling um, not so good in terms of comparing it to a resin, which is a new new material for plastics. So uh, but this could actually change. It can these things can actually reduce cost. The circular economy as a whole should have been
Mm-hmm.
in concept should be reducing cost, because we are now not going to extract more materials or get more materials. um it should have been just the same materials and we will just reuse it now and
Yes.
repurpose it. It's really in terms of the waste industry, it's hard to have a homogeneous it's hard to have a perfectly clean dried
Mm-hmm.
recyclables. So it's now hard to recycle them, and the amount that you will actually get if you well, the hassles, the time, the effort, the money involved, the capital expenses is really high, or higher than the just the new materials being used to create these plastic bottles, for example. So we should be thinking as a nation. We should not be thinking as us right now, especially that we have this problem of pandemic and there is now a problem. People should recognize that there are more problems out there, but these problems are actually interconnected. We should be recognizing that if we just think of it
Yes.
as ourselves, that this is not a problem of my household or myself, why would I think of circular economy and
Yeah.
contributing to that?
Mm-hmm.
This is going to be a vicious cycle for everybody. So
Yes.
as an individual, if you're listening to this discussion, if you want to
Yes.
help in the circular economy, you can actually start with just the recycling or the segregating. Sorry,
Yeah.
we can just start by recycling, drying the recycled materials, making sure that it is not contaminated by any biodegradables, any hazardous materials, so that it can be recycled properly. and it will no longer be part
Yes.
of the residuals, or it will no longer go to the landfills. So thankfully, I'm very thankful for those the unsung heroes. I think we should
Yes.
we should owe to the garbage collectors
Mm-hmm.
that they are actually getting our garbage, especially those who are what we call waste scavengers. So
Yes.
we owe it to them. If not for them, a lot of our recyclables will not be recycled at all.
Yes.
What they are doing is that from the landfills themselves, they will go there just for a few cents money. They will get those garbage, even if there is a high risk
That's a
of
lot of risk,
yeah,
actually.
accidents and
Mm-hmm.
whatever diseases that you can get from that landfill. um so they will get that. They will clean the recyclables, they will
Mm-hmm.
dry the recyclables, and then sell that to the junk shops, and thereby
Mm-hmm.
going towards and thereby it these materials that has been in the landfill now becomes part of the system again of the circular economy. But then again, it is now in the lower grade of the recycling. So if it's
Mm-hmm.
a lower grade, if it's substandard, then it is not good for creating good materials as well, good products as well. So it might go to the usually our garbage here in the Philippines goes to China. So those recycled materials, especially those that are subpar materials, they go to China and they are being recycled as what we have as toys in Divisoria.
Yes.
So that's the reason why they are cheap, because the standard of plastic is also cheap. But there is also, I don't know if you have remembered the problem before, that there was a lead poisoning because a child
Mm-hmm.
um uh, this toy that was bought from the Visoria
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
was able to put that in his or her mouth, and the child was lead poisoned. So
Oh.
that's one recursion, or that's one problem if we think of this as something that should be cheap and should have a substandard plastics. So if,
Yes.
for example, we don't have substandard plastics, this should not have happened.
Yes. Sir JM, you want to
Okay.
add something?
Yeah. Just this statistic that comes into mind. In the United States, they did say there was a report that says 35% of all plastics are recyclable.
Mm-hmm.
35%,
Wow.
pretty low.
35.
So the remaining 65%, in previous practice is incineration. You'll have to incinerate.
Mm-hmm.
Now in the Philippines, you can't incinerate because of the Clean Air Act.
Yes.
What do? You send it to the landfill, and it's sitting there. It's not rotting.
Mm-hmm.
It's not degrading because it takes a long time to degrade plastic. So it's just sitting there unless somebody na you call your neighborhood nangangalakal would be taking it away and send it to or some junk shop would be able to salvage it. It's just sitting in the landfill. And that's pretty bad.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And
yeah,
yeah,
go on, go on. I see
actually,
Ray.
Go on, Miss
it
Rach.
some of the mga ngalakal din, remember that there is also the concept of contaminated waste. Well, waste siya, but it's contaminated. For example, the recyclables are contaminated with biodegradables, and uh, this is actually some cannot be bought by the junk shops. So what would
Mm-hmm.
mga ngalakal do if the garbage or the recyclables that they have gotten from the households are actually contaminated and they were not received by the junk shops themselves? So itatapon niya na lang. They would just
Oo.
throw away. Now the question is,
Yeah.
where are they going to throw it away? The nearest waterway, the nearest canal, the nearest river?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. Now that we are talking about circular economy here in the Philippines, I wanted to ask. This is a very special question. How about those that are in the developed countries? That's one of the questions that we have deliberated. And Sir JM, do you want to answer that question?
Okay. Um, in fairness to developing countries,
Yes.
we are actually very, very innovative in terms
Yeah.
of
Mm-hmm.
of this thing, this thing called circular economy. I mean, I don't think other countries would have uh, small scale junk shops for one, or the concept of the pangangalakal. That's quite Filipino. But then there's
Mm-hmm.
also innovative solutions that are coming up, like social enterprises that are re-engineering, single-use plastic to be used as another material that's actually sturdier, stronger, and better than it was originally used. Uh, like eco bricks for one, that's already an innovation. But there's also like eco chairs. There's um, like doing the using plastics to do molds on your lawn for one. That's already being innovated. I mean, it's on its way.
Mm-hmm.
So another thing is you use single-use plastic for asphalt. Uh, I mean, it's coming from overseas, the technology, but you see developing countries that are experimenting on it as well and are using it, and it's being proven as well that it's uh, 20 to 30%, I think, stronger than the original asphalt. That's a good thing because
Mm-hmm.
you made sturdier roads out of something that was already discarded for one.
That is a lot of statistics that you've got there, and I just recently learned that Finland, okay, Finland has pioneered this has been pioneering about circular economy. What can you say about that? Um, what did they do to you know uh, engage in this kind of business model? Is there anyone can answer?
Or maybe Rage could answer.
Miss
Sorry,
Rage,
sorry.
yeah. Uh,
Um,
I'll just make it general. The European standards. Yeah. What? How,
can you sorry? Can you repeat that?
why has Finland or other European countries become a pioneer in the circular economy?
Ah, okay. Well, for one, of course, the Western side, the Europe side is usually, well, the it's more on who has advanced their society first.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Our society, the Filipino society, is pretty much a kid. So compared to,
Developing.
so yeah, but we're still developing. So, um, the concepts has already been experienced by these people. The US, the European countries has experienced the lack of ways, the lack of resources. Um, they have experienced the problems of waste. So that's the reason why they learn more from them. They learn, they set standards, they create frameworks for this to happen. And yeah, so they were the first ones to basically they were the first ones to endure those problems and to feel those pains. So they have the standards. That's the reason why. um
Mm-hmm.
and what we should do as the developing countries instead is to learn from their experience. What we want as a nation is to leapfrog from having this problem. Supposedly, instead of feeling this problem, we should be learning from the different countries. If they have already experienced that, why do we bother to actually want to experience that as well? For example, just the COVID-19. If we have learned already that there is this facts and best practices, problems that had been solved already by the different countries, by China themselves. So what we do is we should be learning from them, or other countries that has a similar resources that we have, almost similar problems experiencing, but they were able to uplift themselves. So we should be following those footsteps. So it's the same with the waste
Mhm.
management and the circular economy concept. We should be learning from them, and to not have the same mistakes, and to not suffer the same problems that they have already figured out what was the best way to solve. So um, again, I'm my expertise is actually more on the waste management side industry, um, because I was able to go down really and meet people and learn a lot from from mangangalakal level to
Yes.
companies, to waste management companies. So it's a very vital part of the circular economy, because basically the waste industry is at the end, at the grave part. Now
Mhm.
how are we going to turn that into a cradle and go back to the cradle again?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. So for us as a developing countries, what we need is to learn from the European standards, from the European things that they have already figured out, since we don't want to repeat the same mistakes, right?
Yes. I
And
am learning. Yeah. Okay, Sir JM.
no, no. Please continue, and then I'll add something to what Rage said.
No. Okay. I'll be ending the question, but please continue, sir.
Okay, so actually, European legislation is also pushing towards the circular economy in a sense, because they're really talking to the scientists. Are we are like in the Philippines? Are we talking a lot to our scientists? That's a question that I want to pose to everyone, because uh, well, there is some degree of disconnect also between the people that are studying these things and the people that need to decide on these things. And the people that need to decide on these things are not actually just people in government. It's also us, the general public. So questions need to be raised. Collaborations, researches need to be expanded for us to understand our system for circular economy. And we can't put in like models that we have in Europe for one, because
Yes.
Mhm.
they may consider automation as part of the circular economy. We have the pangangalakal system that is as efficient, if not better, because
Yeah.
they know it from years of experience. And it's something that we may need to look at again, if we're going to move forward to the circular economy model for the country.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
true.
And we're not talking about resiliency, but we are very proud with what Filipino system we have, the pangangalakal system. That's one thing that we should be really proud of. One trait. And by questions, we've got a lot of questions from our viewers. So let's keep this going. Next slide, please. Now, some of our viewers are uh, businessmen from home because of the quarantine. Can you please explain to them how can you share the role of circular economy plays in the saving the environment in their homes? Miss
Rage,
Rage?
Sure. Okay. Um, uh, Circular economy. There are a lot of places where they can help. Again,
Yes.
the circular economy is not just the waste industry. It's not just the
Mm-hmm.
so it's just the end point. Well, what
Mhm.
you want is to not have an end point, right? But
Yes.
uh, they can, first and foremost, they can help themselves be more aware of what is circular economy. They can also learn if what is um, consumption, how to be the
Mm.
right consumer, or a
Yes.
responsible consumer in the first place. So if if they even want to learn more where the materials are actually coming from, they can also do that.
Yes.
Where what is raw materials? What are the things? For example, what basic question? What's the raw material for paper? It's tree. What's the raw
Mm-hmm.
material for your phones? They are actually just ores. They are actually
Yes.
they are metals. The metals in the ore themselves, they are now turned into metals, and then the metals are turned into products, and now you have a phone after a lot of countries has already processed the materials, the raw materials. Now they are being shipped, all of the parts are being shipped to China, and they're being assembled in China and then sold to everyone. So if people would understand, that is actually called global value chain. So that's another discussion, that's another topic, but
Yes.
um this actually contributes, the idea of global value chain also contributes to the global circular economy. And that's macroeconomics then. So you
Mm-hmm.
want to learn about macroeconomics, you can also do that. So it really starts with, if you want to since we are at home, we stay at home, we work at home, and
Yes.
we study at home, might as well learn about these things. There are a lot of online platforms that you can learn from. There are humanitarian leadership platforms as well. You have also course learning platforms. There are environmental organizations with this type of sessions and talks.
Mm-hmm.
You can actually learn from them. It starts with you learning first, because once you know something, that's where you can empower yourselves to actually do something about what you have learned. So first step is learn, then you now try to act on what you have learned. And
Apply. Yes.
once you have applied and act on it, now you try to practice it. So learn, act, and practice, so it becomes a habit for you, and eventually it becomes an advocacy for you, and you can teach. Now you can actually teach more
Yes.
people as well.
Yes. Remember that, LAP. Learn, act, practice, and make it a habit, okay? That's amazing. Thank you. Okay, Sir JM, I know you
Uh,
have a lot to say. Okay, go.
if I may modify what Rage said about ACT, um, the thing you also need to ask is, how's my waste at home? How it's being disposed?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you trace your waste basically, in order for you to understand how are you contributing to waste disposal, the linear economy, and hopefully turn it into the circular economy. So you ask, who do you ask? You ask your barangay officials if their MRF is really there. You ask the garbage men, where do they transport the wastes? You ask your local officials to know how they process or they intend to treat your waste. From there, you
Hello,
I think,
Jonas.
hello, Sir JM.
J- we can't hear you.
Okay, we know that Sir JM has a lot of things, okay, going in his mind and wants to, say all these things, and that's really interesting. Okay, we can go back to Sir JM later. But right now we'll have the final question. Miss Rage, you and I.
Sure,
Okay.
sure.
Now, can you share some tips on how anyone can start transitioning towards a circular economy? It could be anybody. It could be a housewife. It could be a single mother, or it could be someone who's going to, start business right now. Okay, go ahead.
Mm, okay, well, again, as I have said, they have to
Mm-hmm.
well, learn first at least. At the
Yes.
very least, help themselves to learn
Yes.
about the circular economy, and the topics that surrounds it. And then two, uh, well, circular economy uh, is a really like a new a concept that has been named, so
Mm-hmm.
that
Yes.
you can really you can connect a concept with a word at least, so it becomes a buzzword for everybody. And what um uh so for us to have the circular economy, um you can actually go from the consumer side, be a responsible consumer. You can do that. And if you are the ones with the company, you can check if how are you going to do your supply and demand chain. How are you going to do your business model? Be aware of where are you going to get your materials and how are you going to deliver the materials. I think that's one tip for the business side.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And then for the one in the houses naman, in the households, you can help, aside from being a good consumer, um, person who is aware of of uh, um, who's aware of the circular economy. Try to look at the things that you really need first. Maybe you can even try doing minimalism. Make sure that when you buy, before you even click Lazada, you click
Mm-hmm.
buy in Lazada or whatever online store. I'm not saying that you don't have to click on it. What I'm saying is that before you click on anything and buy some things, we know that we have this like, hey, there's a button, I want to click that button. So
Yes.
parang ano lang yun, parang red button, di ba? Pag ka na
Yes.
do not click the button. Can I touch the button? So basically it's like that in the online stores. The red button feels
Mm-hmm.
like, can you like want to click that? So before you even buy anything, check first if you really need to buy that thing.
Yeah.
Do
Mm-hmm.
you need to buy more stuff? Do you need, or can you just, you know, can you just use whatever you have right now?
Mm-hmm.
Is there really a need? Because
Think before we click.
there's a big difference between needing and wanting. You might want
Yeah. Mm.
something, but you don't need it.
But
So
yeah.
yeah, that's already one. It reduces cost for your household. It reduces cost for your own pocket.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the circular economy for you as an individual. And maybe we can try minimalism. Yeah, check it out, and how the concept works. It might help in the long term.
Yes. Okay. Sir JM, you're back.
Yeah, sorry about that. Just had a net problem.
Yeah, it's okay.
If only the internet also had a circular economy.
Yeah.
True.
Well, I
Okay.
think we're still tackling the same question or different question about Jonas.
Can you share some tips on how anyone can start transitioning now towards a circular economy?
Right.
Talk to the
Okay.
viewers.
All right. Well, one fact that I actually shared at a webinar with AIM was that during the pandemic, there was an increase of 50, I think it was 10 to 20% of sales in the online food uh, networks. So you're talking about Food Panda and Grab Food and Lala Food. What does that mean? Although in shops you decreased your consumption of things that you throw on, you increase naman the things that you throw on when you deliver. And obviously, what Rage said earlier with the online stores, if you think about it as well, you know, those packages that house your product, that's single use. So that number, 10 to 20%, maybe even higher if we now incorporate those methods now of getting stuff. So you know, even even in food, what you could also consider is really uh, you know, try cooking at home for one. That's one. And uh, what else? Really just try to reduce your consumption as much as you
Mm-hmm.
want. If you can't reduce, then find ways to segregate at the source. Anyway, it's required under the law to reduce. I mean, to segregate at the source. Although it's not really practiced, something that I find very, very uh, disturbed, I guess. But that can be fixed. That can be managed. Uh, and also, like, think of ways to actually reuse products at home. You know, um, I have an egg tray right now that's growing in garlic and sealing the buyo. That's
Mm-hmm.
already reusing something that's supposed to throw. So you can do it as well. Other innovative ideas is like using uh, your kind of corned beef for one as a pencil holder. So we're getting
Oh,
toward upcycling, and
the holder.
yeah, and there's actually something that my mother saw on YouTube, where she turned an old box, she and turned it into like a photo album of sorts because
Wow.
she glued photos of
Mm-hmm.
uh, her family or her friends into the box.
Mm-hmm.
So that's also an example of reusing your product, and you're not throwing it away. Why would you throw it away? It has
Yeah.
more.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, even those simple things can be already innovative and prevent the throwing of those things um, to the landfill.
Yeah. So those were the questions that we have in mind, and now I'll be asking some of the questions coming from our audience. And I would just like to say that our viewers are very participative. Okay, we have a lot of viewers from Rizal, QC. We even have in Baguio, and guess what? We also reached Italy. Okay.
Wow.
I,
So yeah,
I know
there's a
who that
comment
is.
from okay. There's a comment from Sandy Blackburn. Okay, she said that perhaps we need to get rid of the term end of life.
Mm.
In a circular economy, there should be no end of life. Yeah, we know
um,
that, Miss Sandy. Yeah, of Sir JM.
yeah, Sandy is actually a colleague of mine at the University of South Wales. So
Oh.
when I was exiting already, we were
Mm-hmm.
already graduating. She came in and
Oh,
was taking
okay.
her master's. I think it was 2017. So hi, Sandy. great
Hello,
to
Miss Sandy.
great to
Okay,
great to hear
and
from
then
you. Yeah.
uh, and then we also have a comment from Hirosuke Honda. He said that I guess it should be a magical blend of market incentives and governmental guidelines on top of the environmental and social needs.
Yeah,
Yes.
definitely. Maybe
Hmm.
just to go back to Sandy's
Yeah.
comment, wherein there should be no end of
No
life.
end of life.
Mm-hmm. Um, well, we have to defend. We have to define what does what what do we mean by end of life. Landfills supposedly they are landfills
Hmm.
because they should be filled up by they should fill up the land, and then you can use that land on the next purpose. But
Mm.
on the concept of the waste, the waste themselves, when they were put into the landfill, they are already like they already end their life, so something like
Oh,
that.
okay.
But the good thing
Mm-hmm.
is that the landfills are now being repurposed, and it's another now a place where you can actually put up another building or something like that. So
Mm-hmm.
um the landfills that we have here in the Philippines is pretty much it's not the ideal landfill, because landfills should not be receiving mixed waste. They should not be receiving biodegradables, because biodegradables, as we know it, it becomes, it decomposes, and when
Mm-hmm.
it decomposes, it emits gases, and these gases
Yes.
are like methane, so they can just blow up. So the reason why landfill should be only residuals and no biodegradables and other recyclables, so is for it to be able to be reused and repurposed as a land for further development, like maybe land development for real estate, whatever subdivision, and something like that. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Again, Sandy Blackburn commented, how significant, essential! Exclamation point! Exclamation point! We need to make the link with the crisis and consumerism. Thank you so much, Sandy, for your comments. Okay. We also have a question. So if any one of you wants to answer, this is a question from Nico Magalona. How does the circular economy go beyond existing climate mitigation commitments? Again, how does the circular economy go beyond existing climate mitigation commitments?
Okay. I'll probably answer that question
Mm-hmm.
because if you really want to be real strict about it in terms of greenhouse gas accounting, uh, every step of the way, if you really account for the total emissions, uh, it's really, really significant. Um, by measuring uh, the difference between the worst case scenario type of emissions and waste generated and the amount that you would be reducing if you used you know ways that are in the circular economy model, you can actually mitigate climate change in its own.
Mm-hmm.
Because our models, in trying to develop uh, situations of how the world will be in 2050 are not just because of temperature, but also of the factors that cause the rise in temperature. And how do we do that? Uh, Through greenhouse gases. And we're not just talking about carbon dioxide here. No, we're talking about the other six greenhouse gases. And I won't elaborate on this because this is not really our topic. But
Yes.
if you think about it, the more that you are putting effort into the circular economy, you are reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Therefore, you're already mitigating the effects of climate change.
So true. And
Yeah.
to add to that, the existing climate mitigation commitments that we have, um, well, I think circular economy brings in the effort of the businesses as well as the consumerism, the consumer side. So I think that's one of the things that's good in the circular economy framework, because with the climate mitigation commitments that we have, usually it's more on the technical and scientific side. But if you add the economic side of things, which means money, which means
Yes.
how are we going to make business viable, as well as making sure that the consumers are also part of the solution, then that's circular economy. So that will really put that, like, things in a closed loop. So it's not just the scientists that we need. It's not just the politicians that we need who says, okay, we will also sign this Kyoto Protocol and whatsoever. It's not just the politics. It's not just the legal aspects and not just the technical side, the technology side. It also involves the people, the economic side, and the people themselves, us humans who's existing here in one world, one earth.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And uh, the circular economy also is making sure that it will reduce the use, well, it will reduce the impact in the environment. Why? because of it will make sure that the current consumption of new materials will also be reduced. Therefore, our land, our ore, our trees, our resources, water will also be replenished. At least will not have that same amount of resources being taken out of the environment itself, because we are going to reuse and recycle and repurpose what we already have inside the whole economy. And two, yes, about the greenhouse gases, uh, a lot of things are because of the fossil fuel. That's the number one
Yes.
global climate pollution. So
Mm-hmm.
the fossil fuels themselves. So if we are going to take into account the circular economy, it actually pushes for renewable energy, the use
Yes.
of renewable energy to sustain whatever projects, to sustain whatever businesses that we have, especially those that would need electricity. And now people are going towards more into the electricity side. We need more electricity now more than ever. We need to power up our homes. We need to power up our computers, our laptops to do this online meetups. We need to power up our grid lines. So we really need to have renewable energy as soon as we can, for us not to be into that vicious cycle again, that because there is a need for electricity, there is now a need for more fossil fuels. So hope that we will actually deviate from that solution,
Yes.
and we will learn from the mistakes of before. So we have to move and transition towards the renewable energy. Yeah. And that's just some of the parts, and there are a
Yes.
lot of a lot of
Mm-hmm.
places yet where everybody can actually contribute.
I'm curious about this question. This is a question from Lawrence Lloyd, and probably this is the last question that we will be mentioning, because as of right now we have a lot of questions from our viewers. But this question is from Lawrence Lloyd. He asks, where is the Philippines right now in terms of legislation or regulations that supports the circular economy?
Okay. This is actually a very very interesting question
Yeah.
because I came across a document sometime earlier in the year that the Philippines is very very compliant in SDG 12, responsible consumption and production.
Mm-hmm.
It's mostly because the Philippines is has the laws. It does.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yes.
in terms of waste, we got two laws. Republic Act 6969, which is the hazardous waste law. Republic Act 9003, which is the solid waste management law. For energy, we have, shoot, I forgot the term, but it's the Renewable Energy Act.
Yeah.
Um, and the government's policy towards fulfilling the SDGs is already realized because Congress is already acting on it. The policy of the DENR is to really push companies to accept additional responsibility to mitigate problems in terms of waste. Those are things that are good in terms of the circular economy. However, the problem lies in enforcement, in education, in putting everyone forward because we're kind of lacking in that department. Uh, and
Mm-hmm.
and actually, this series is contributing to that cause. And episodes like this should be avenues to talk um, and discuss what's in the law that are we doing right, what's in the law that we can improve.
Yeah.
If you look at even in the Solid Waste Management Act, there are things that are actually very very good to enforce. Then there's also things that we really need to rethink.
Yeah.
because it may not be practical to a certain location, or it really takes a lot of effort to do it. So, how do we do it? We really need to band together, ask the questions, find
Hmm.
solutions.
Yes. I think that's a good suggestion. It's great because I think we need to have a separate episode for this. Discussing about private issues. Those are a lot of those are private companies, but there is a sense of we need to put in how we could turn these private companies follow something that is a must, okay, and that is addressing ecological issues. We haven't touched that yet, but that's a great suggestion, Sir JM. Thank you for that. Miss Rage, do you want to add?
I think I'm good. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Thank
you
you.
know um uh, it's almost time already. I know that there are still a lot of questions from our audience that we were not able to ask, and we're very sorry about that. But don't worry, we will try our best to answer them in the comment section later on. Our panelist is active on Facebook and in LinkedIn, and they would be glad to answer those queries we haven't touched on. Next slide, please. Before we say goodbye, Miss Rage, do you have any last points that you want our audience to know? And maybe you can also share how our audience can possibly connect with you and follow you on your respective advocacies.
Sure. As you have know, as Jonas mentioned, I'm connected with Bridge 360, so you can like and follow us there, like and follow the page, as well as for the Waste PH. I'm also
Yes.
currently the director for climate change and environment for the Global Shapers community of Manila Hub. This
Yes.
that's an organization created by the World Economic Forum for professionals to network
Mm-hmm.
with each other. So for those who are actually interested, 18 to 27 years old, you can actually join the Global Shapers community. So
Yes.
just follow us there. We also have our website at www.globalshapersmanila.org. And so I'm also currently connected with Plan Philippines. And for those who are actually into fighting against, fighting for children's rights, uh,
Yes.
so specifically for girls and young women, we advocate for that. And if you want to learn more about our activities and where you can help, we do help a lot of places here in the Philippines, from Central Mindanao to Eastern, Northern, Western Samar, Occidental Mindoro,
Yes.
Masbate. Here
Mm-hmm.
in Metro Manila, we also help out during the COVID-19. So if you want to help, please do check out our page and message us so that you can be involved as well.
Yes.
Yeah, so just like and subscribe to our pages. Yeah, and you can message me personally. So look for me in Facebook. And yeah, if you have other questions you want to collaborate, I'll be there. You can also email me at rage@bridge360.ph.
Yes. Thank you so much, Miss Rage. Okay. Sir JM, do you have any last points that you want our audience to know? And maybe you can also share how our audience can possibly connect with you and follow you on your respective advocacies.
Right. Well, first of all, thanks for the organizers for having me back and
It's our
discuss.
pleasure.
And well, I always believe in two things that in order for you to change the world, you have to have self change.
Yes.
And you also need to live curious. And that's the motto of the National Geographic Channel.
Yes.
But, so those are the two things that probably our audience will need to may need to think about also about how to move forward with not just this topic but anything that you want to do if you want to create change around you. Um, you can search for me on Facebook. It's I mean, I'm very, very active on Facebook. You can reach me anytime. Uh, but you could also reach me through two of my
Oh,
advocacies, Silent PH.
yes.
So Silent PH is they're filling startup, and we're really doing our best to innovate, to yeah, to transition to the new norm. And we're actually we
In your
also
podcast.
yeah. Well, before the
Mm-hmm.
podcast, we are I would also like to advertise to small and medium enterprises that they
Yes.
want to also I mean, if they're interested in working with us in innovating solutions as well to become more responsible in plastics,
Mm-hmm.
get evaluation or helping them out in their initiatives, Silent PH is actually opening that opportunity for collaboration. As for well, our podcast in Sustain a Rumble, we do have a Sustain a Rumble community page.
Yes.
So just have a reach of us. It's Sustain a Rumble. It's on Facebook, uh, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We're also there, and we're at the moment we are focusing on urban transport as an issue as part of our mini series. But I do suggest that they check out previous episodes on the circular economy, which featured uh, a speaker from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, and
Yes.
on
Mm-hmm.
plastic wastes, which
Mm-hmm.
we had our speaker came from the ENR. So
Wow. Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, and yeah, you I mean, if there are additional questions, they can really. The best way for them is to reach me through Facebook,
Yes.
and I hope
Mm-hmm.
that I could collaborate as well with people who are like-minded. Um, I'll just put a brief plug now. I'm actually helping a Filipino Chinese church in Binondo in trying to
Yes.
identify their
Mm-hmm.
wastes and try to reduce their wastes as part of their church stewardship.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Nice.
and yeah, and we hope that we can see results with them in the coming months.
Yes.
Awesome.
We hope for your success, Sir JM. Thank you so much. Next slide. Um, in behalf of the AtoAni BioPack Enterprise, I am honored to moderate this webinar with the both of you, Sir JM and Miss Rage. It is truly my honor and my privilege to, at least know your side, know your stories, and actually, I learned a lot. Okay, this is something that is really important with these trying times. We need to at least go back to education. We need to learn. Okay, and this opportunity, listening to the both of you, I have learned so much, and hopefully our viewers too. You have been very generous in sharing to us your experiences and expertise about enabling circular economy during COVID-19. I've learned a lot, and I'm sure our audience were able to pick up a lot of good points from the discussion, which they can use to start out sustainable communities in their respective areas. Once again, thank you so much, Ms. Rage and Sir JM, for spending
Thank
your
you.
time with us for tonight's webinar. I know we have a little amount of time in our hands, but we'll see each other again soon. Okay? Thank you so much.
All right. Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you
Bye.
Thank you so
for
much.
inviting us.
Thank
Thank
You
you
have a
you.
guys.
great
And
and
Our
lovely weekend.
pleasure. Yes. Okay.
so for viewers in the Philippines, enjoy your dinner.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so with that, before we end, I would like to call on Miss Jonna Anyora from AtoAni BioPack to share to us about AtoAni BioPack's advocacy and maybe how you can take part, and just like our guest panelists for today, how you can share your knowledge as well and be part of our next batch of panelists. Miss Jonna?
So hello, thank you so much for that, Jonas. But before anything else, I just want to say thank you for our guest panelist for today, which is Miss Reg Gonzales and Sir J.M. Dumdum, for sharing a lot of inputs about circular economy, and also to our viewers who are very active in participating. Thank you so much. So yeah, hi, I'm Jonna. My background is in industrial engineering, but I am passionate about sustainability as well. So with this, I currently lead the partner collaboration function of AtoAni BioPack and the product development function of AtoAni. So at AtoAni BioPack, we envision to help reduce plastic waste through sustainable biodegradable packaging made from agro-industrial byproducts and materials. So with this, in our own little way, we hope to spread awareness not only about sustainable packaging, but also about zero waste and sustainability practices, as what you have learned now about sustainable communities and on the other sustainable solutions as well, which we will showcase in our next webinar episodes. So with that, to anyone who wants to take part of this awareness, advocacy, and share their knowledge, social enterprises, zero waste shops, manufacturers, and zero waste and sustainability advocates, we would love to connect with you. So we are also looking for our next batch of panelists to learn from. So if you are interested to become a panelist in one of our webinar episodes, please feel free to send us a message on our Facebook page at AtoAni BioPack or Instagram at AtoAni underscore BioPack. Or you can also join our community of advocates through our Facebook group, AtoAni X Sustainable Packaging Advocates, where we organize webinars such as this, community online events, collaborations, discussions, as well as share first-hand speaker and moderator opportunities.
Okay. Thanks, Miss Jonna. So for those who have attended our previous webinar, we have introduced this call for social enterprises. And as of this week, we would like to announce that we are done for our first batch of selection from those who signed up from the previous weeks of our first session on September, where we will showcase a few social enterprises to share their story on how they started and what they are advocating that we may learn from their experience. We are currently running selection for our next batch. So if you are a business owner, you have a story to tell, and you're a business advocate for zero waste and sustainability, then we would like to feature you in the hashtag AtoAni feature series that's going to happen next week. Okay? Just go to this link that you're seeing, and which we will be sharing as well in the comment section. We will have another round of selection for this. Next slide. With this as a call to action, we encourage everyone to learn and be an advocate for sustainability to the people around us by not attending this webinar, but also sharing them to your family, your friends, and your colleagues. So, if anyone who is interested, we can collectively take an action. Watch out for more Ato Ani Learn series episodes by liking Ato Ani BioPack's Facebook page at Ato Ani BioPack for zero waste and sustainability topics, and Ato Ani's Facebook page at Ato Ani PH for agriculture topics. For Ato Ani BioPack, we will have two more webinars for September, which is on top of what we will have for hashtag Ato Ani feature series. So see you all on Saturdays of September and October. And this is it. We are going to have our hashtag AtoAni feature series, stories, green gems, stories of ecopreneurs, where you will get to witness some of the most interesting routes to success of entrepreneurs aided by ecological appreciation. We'll have some of the great ecopreneurs that we will be showing next week. So better watch out for this series webinar. That will happen next week, same time, 6 to 7 p.m. I hope to be with you all. Next slide. So with that, I would like to officially close this webinar. I hope you have learned something from the discussion. Thank you all for tuning in. See you next Saturday, same time, 6 to 7 p.m. And have a good night, everyone. Thank you so much.